This is the story of a girl who broke her screen addiction and discovered a life more beautiful than she ever thought possible. That's me, Jess. And for most of my life, I struggled with some form of escapism. Being a 90s kid, right at the cusp of the internet and computers, that often meant screens. When I was little, it was endless entertainment, TV, computer games, and later social media. But it wasn't just entertainment. My entire world revolved around screens.
And action.
I grew up as an actor in LA, and so when I wasn't watching a screen, I was trying to be on one. A screen or a stage. That was what I knew. And as a kid, I struggled with insomnia and was always just a bit more anxious than my friends seemed to be. As I got older, my days became a blur of comparison, information overload, and the constant feeling of being behind. My mind never able to rest. And then I had my daughter.
7. There you go!
Watching her grow, seeing this tiny human in awe of things I'd long dismissed, the clouds in the sky, the butterfly on the grass, it woke something in me. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted a different kind of life. For her, yes, but also for me. Around that time, I stumbled upon the minimalism movement. I loved decluttering and living with less, but the real change came when I discovered something deeper: digital minimalism. Cal Newport defines it as a philosophy of technology use, one where your values determine how you use technology, not the other way around. Anything that doesn't support those values, you ignore or eliminate it completely. What started as a blind attempt to slow down turned into a 4-year experiment in living radically different. And the results were nothing short of miraculous. My insomnia disappeared. My marriage blossomed. I stopped feeling angry and on edge all the time. My nervous system reset, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt peace in my body. This is the unabridged, brutally honest story of what opting out of modern normalcy looked like for me, and why I'm never going back. So actually, this whole journey started when I did something rather drastic, maybe extreme, when my daughter was about 5 or 6 months old. But the truth was that I was extremely frustrated and really wanted to see something change. I entered in a year-long entertainment TV fast. No streaming, no Netflix on in the background, no watching Gilmore Girls or The Office constantly while I'm doing house chores, no binging the latest series, no hours of TV after my husband was done with work. None of that. Obviously, there were things I noticed right away that were beneficial. Like my sleep was definitely better. My nervous system obviously seemed to be a lot more regulated. I had a lot less nightmares just because I wasn't being filled with so many otherworldly possible scenarios constantly in my brain. I felt less insecure because I realized that I wasn't constantly watching videos of perfectly lit Hollywood actresses all the time. But the real magic came a couple months into it. If you're anything like me, you probably use TV, whether it's streaming shows for comfort, for nostalgia, to distract yourself, for an escape. I used it for all of those things. And when that was removed, those emotions, those burdens that haven't been walked through, those things that are begging for your attention in your heart and your mind, they're like, hey, we're here. Let's work through them. I need to be heard. As I processed through it, felt like I was releasing so much noise from my body. I didn't realize that the background noise I always wanted to have with TV and entertainment was covering up a deeper background noise in my heart and in my mind. And what that led to was a lot of noise. It led to a feeling of constant overstimulation. It led to a feeling of not knowing why I was stuck in certain emotional patterns over and over and over again, not knowing why I would react to certain ways. I was too distracted to see how distracted I was. And when I was able to remove the background noise of entertainment and actually get to the things that needed to be tended to in my heart and my mind, What led way was a stillness, like a stillness in my mind and my body that I had never tapped before. My whole system became resensitized to the beauty of my own life. I was always someone that was characterized by a level of discontentment. Like, I was always someone that was constantly escaping into fantastical novels, and I loved entertainment and watching like fantasy films and just like these otherworldly stories. I was constantly searching for what I thought was extraordinary. And I had honestly like a disdain for ordinary life. And when I became a mom, I remember feeling so conflicted because I was so aware that this season with my baby was so fleeting and it was so ordinary. And I wanted to enjoy it. I couldn't enjoy being with her. I couldn't slow down and be still enough to actually savor the mundane life that I had with my sweet baby because my entire system had been primed and used to the constant extraordinary, the constant stimulation, the constant noise. The metaphor I use is if you're someone that grew up on like hyper palatable processed foods, eating something like an apple doesn't taste very sweet. Even though that apple is more sustainable for you to live on and more nourishing for your entire being, your body won't recognize that as very sweet because your taste buds have been accustomed to hyper palatable fake foods. When I went on that entertainment fast, it was like a palate cleanser. It was like my taste buds could resensitize to the sweetness and the deliciousness of the apple. And I began to enjoy, like literally just enjoy everyday moments of my life. I began to appreciate the depth of my husband and I's relationship because I wasn't constantly exposed to fake Hollywood romance. I began to really appreciate like slow walks with my daughter and looking at trees and sitting outside because I wasn't constantly watching these like fantastical heroine adventure stories all the time that would make me think that what I was doing was boring without the hyper palatability of Hollywood. I could see and taste how precious these moments and these people in my life were. It truly made me start to fall in love with my life. A life that previously I really wrestled and struggled with discontentment in. My circumstances did not change. I changed. Naturally, that had this ripple effect to our entire family. We actually don't own a TV. My daughter doesn't watch TV as a regular part of her life. We will do a movie night sometimes as a family, and it's this like really fun, especially in the winter, like intentional thing. We're watching a Christmas movie and we make special snacks, and it's like this super fun way for us to spend time together. And that's pretty much the only way that we engage with television. I think that when it comes to kids and screens, and every kid is so different, every parent has to decide like what's best for them and their family. But I can tell you honestly that when my year-long entertainment fast was up, we tried to experiment with her watching a show a few times a week, a low stimulation show. I did everything I thought to mitigate it. And still, every time it was over, there would be a meltdown. I would notice her nervous system. She just didn't respond well to it. And I finally came to the point after a few months of just telling my husband, like, I don't know why I feel like she should be able to. Her brain has to process so much in the world already, and it was clear she was giving me signs that this wasn't a good fit for her. And so I became that mom that whose kid doesn't watch TV and that we don't own a TV. Our entire life, our entire lifestyle has radically changed simply because we reoriented and asked ourselves, what kind of life do we want to live? And did TV and entertainment, did that have a large role in the life that we wanted to live? And just for my husband and I personally, when we really got clear about our values and what we wanted to create for our kids, the answer was no. Now, as you can imagine, this shift, it affected other areas of our digital life, mainly social media. In a previous life, prior to motherhood, I actually ran a business, a different business through Instagram, and a pretty lucrative one. I ran a coaching business, and Instagram was predominantly how I got that business, and I quit a 6-figure Instagram business in 2020. One of the primary factors for that decision, that at the time people kind of like thought I was crazy to do, to be honest, one of the primary factors for that was that the environment that I was engaging in, it was not producing the kind of fruit I wanted in my life, and to be honest, and it was actually impacting the kind of person that I was, the way that I saw other people, my reactivity, the way that I saw the world, in ways I was not in line with. And even though I quit that business, I did not entirely get off of all social media apps until 2 years after that, because I kept doing this dance where I thought it was the app, it was my time on the app, I'll set stricter boundaries, I'll try something different. I had a different business on TikTok, built that platform up to a large following, realized nope, it's not the app. It's not something I wanted to engage with. Quit that, dissolved that as well. I have a long video detailing specifically my experience quitting social media and what now 2.5 years being off of social media apps, what I've seen in my life. If you want to sit and listen to like a long form video about that specifically, all the nitty gritty details. But what I will tell you is this, and this was so powerful, and this was really the aha moment for me. The simple truth of it was that it stole me from my own life. Like the way I could be outside with my daughter and she'd be playing and she like would want to engage with me. And I had a hard time being present with her because, not because I was on my phone when she was around. That was a boundary I tried to hold hard to, but because I saw something hours before that I was ruminating on now. Maybe it made me mad. Maybe it made me upset. Maybe it made me fearful. Maybe it was just a lot of information to take in. One of my favorite quotes, it's in this video, is by John Mark Comer, and it's attention precedes devotion. And basically another world, right? A world of scrolling and this and that had a lot of my attention, even though I was only on it for a short period of time during the day. The time frame didn't matter, because the truth is I could be on it for 4 minutes, but it had my attention for 4 hours of my day. That amount of attention creates a devotion in your heart. It turns your heart posture towards wherever your attention is. And I didn't want my attention there. I wanted my attention in my life. I wanted my attention in my reality with my child, with my family. I wanted my attention on what I could create and contribute to the world. I wanted my attention on the Lord. It wasn't when I was on Instagram, no matter who I tried to follow. I don't want my children to think that they're interrupting me when they're coming up to me to share their life with me, because kids, they interrupt, which some people call it interruptions, but really it's them just trying to be with you and share something with you and share their life with you. But when my attention was always elsewhere, it felt like interruptions, and I couldn't help but respond like it was an interruption. Now, obviously I get lost in my own thoughts. I think about other things. It's not that my attention is always right here in the present moment, but the truth was that I had a choice whether to engage in those apps, and it was so clearly producing fruit in my life that I did not want, that I really had to ask myself, Jess, like, why are you holding on to this? Obviously, because I've shared this before, and I'll get comments like, but YouTube is social media, which is fair. I will say, I don't have it on my phone. I'm not someone that's ever struggled with scrolling on YouTube. YouTube is not where I want to spend a lot of time, which is hilarious. I'm like the worst YouTuber ever, actually. That's different for everyone. If YouTube is the same as Instagram and TikTok for you, turn it off. Don't watch this. Just get off. You know what I mean? Like, do whatever you need to do. And like I said, this is so personal, and I'm sharing my own journey to hopefully encourage you to ask these questions in your own life. But what I will say is that not being on social media, not having social media apps on my phone, it has like objectively made me a more enjoyable person to be around. I am less judgmental. I'm less polarizing in my thinking about literally everything. I find that I'm a lot less defensive, like in conversations with people. My family, my life, my reality, it has me, not a spaced out, distracted version of me. Now, naturally getting off social media massively lessened the amount of information and news that I was receiving, but there's still a lot of other options. I was still, like, historically a podcast junkie. I loved information. That was actually a coping mechanism for me. I've mentioned that I have a history of health issues. I have a whole video on how I healed like PCOS and hypothyroidism naturally. It's like 10-year journey of me really just radically changing my entire life and feeling literally the healthiest I've ever been at this point in time. Previously, a big way that I coped with that was just I got to learn everything there is to learn. I'm going to listen to every biohacker's podcast. I'm going to consume so much information. I'm going to follow all the people so that I can have answers, thinking that consuming information is the same as getting a transformation. And what I can tell you is that those things are not the same thing. The way that I absorb information now is so radically different than the way that I absorbed information historically before becoming a lot more minimal about this. Like I said, I thought more was better. The more I know, naturally, it should reflect and change about my life. The more parenting accounts I follow and parenting podcasts I listen to, the better parent I must become. The more information I'm taking in, the healthier I should become because I know more. What I found personally was that that strategy did not work. When I was obsessed with trying to be a better parent and I was following all these accounts that alone were beautiful accounts. They were designed to help parents. They were designed to give them like tips and just things to think about intentionally. The way that I consumed them, constantly listening to podcasts about them, when I was on Instagram, constantly following accounts that did this. Even the way that I consumed books, it was like I was trying to read as much as I could as possible. The way that I consumed information actually only ever made me, I think, a worse parent. It made me hyperfixate on all the things that I thought I was doing wrong. I struggled with patience more often because I was so stressed and anxious and fearful about doing the wrong thing or messing her up, to be honest. I was more irritable and I was more on edge. And that carried through in the way that I treated my husband, because I maybe was listening to a podcast about XYZ and then my husband said the thing that you're not supposed to say. You're not supposed to say this, you're supposed to say that, because I don't know, our kid might not think that we love them if we say XYZ, if we say good job. You know what I'm saying? Like, this sounds crazy, but I know that it's not crazy because I know that other people relate to this. And so I would snap at him. I would be a more tense mom. I would not exhibit the patience and the like regulated calmness that I wanted to, that I actually think produces the most fruit in my relationship with my daughter and the most fruit in my relationship with my husband. And the same thing goes for health. I am literally feel the healthiest I've ever been. I have 9 months pregnant. I've had a wonderful pregnancy. Like, I feel so much better than I did with my first. And obviously, the way we live our life is so radically different in those 4 years between those two pregnancies, like I said, for all that we're mentioning in this video. But one of the biggest changes that has occurred is that I am not obsessed with consuming information about my health. I have opted out of a lot of podcasts that are great podcasts that I previously engaged in, simply because I realized that I will only ever consume information in amounts that A, honor my human limits, which means I cannot know everything and I cannot know the amount that social media and what's available on the internet wants me to know. That's not respecting my human limits. I can only process so much. And B, information that truly enacts transformation. This is like the beauty of content creation and people putting things out there. When information becomes transformation. This naturally is similarly to how I have opted to stay out of the loop. Naturally, with digital minimalism, I receive a lot less news about literally everything that's going on. And what I have really come to see is that it's not uncaring or irresponsible or ignorant to consume less and to opt out of the rat race of staying informed or staying in the loop. Letting go of the idea that I needed to like stay informed, or that I would be judged as being like a bad person or not caring or willfully ignorant. enter all of these judgmental ideas was like the hardest part actually for me. I think in the name of trying to care so much or just trying to stay informed, we have completely abandoned our human limits. And it hasn't led to more good in the world. I think it's actually led to more divisiveness. It's led to more fear in our own lives, and it's led to less enriching relationship in our direct community. My friends, family, people that we are in community with, they have burdens to bear. And I find that my capacity has increased to walk with them and to bear their burdens too. I can care deeply because I haven't extended that resource so much scrolling through all of the terrible things that are happening while on Instagram or TikTok. I don't want to live a fear-based life. And as a Christian, I can tell you that the phrase or command to not be afraid or do not fear appears so much in the Bible. I think it's like hundreds of times the emphasis on not fearing. And living in this world in general, just like being a parent, having life, there's already a temptation. There's already things to be afraid of, to be honest. And so I don't think it's wise for me to choose to invite things into my life, choose to engage with media that I know only adds fear or strife or judgment into my life. I know that's like radical, possibly even controversial to say, but that's how I live. And interestingly enough, I don't identify as someone that struggles with anxiety anymore. It used to be a huge part of my identity. I don't think technology is evil. I don't even think watching TV or being on social media is inherently bad. I have been radically transformed in the last 4 years by this journey of digital minimalism, which I actually think is really just a term for opting out of a scattered, stimulated, stressed life. I appreciate what technology can do for us. I'm on YouTube, so clearly I'm not anti-technology. I am very pro allowing your values to dictate the way you engage with technology, not the other way around. That's obviously going to be different for every person, but I hope that in hearing my story, you feel encouraged and inspired to ask those questions for yourself. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here and hearing my story. Let me know what this is bringing up for you in your own life in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.